You know, one of the things I've always appreciated about Jim Beam, last time we were there and we were visiting, they said our goal is to make sure that our whiskey is available to anybody who wants it. They're like, you know, you've got some other distilleries out there whose goal is to basically have something that's really exclusive. You think of things like Buffalo Trace. It's hard to get, and so it drives up demand. But with Jim Beam, they're like, listen, we just want our whiskey on every shelf. If you want it, you can get it. And that's always been the thing that makes Jim Beam stand out, is that they're available. And a lot of times that means they're also obtainable in the price department as well. And I think that Knob Creek does a great job doing exactly that. So Knob Creek is like, hey, we have our whiskey, but we have our whiskey in like 20 different forms. Do you want it at 7 years, 9 years, 12 years, 18 years, single barrel, barrel proof? Do you want them blended together? Do you want it with like a maple wood? Like there's just so many different variations of Knob Creek, and they're all, for the most part, pretty obtainable when it comes to the price tag. And today I'm going to be trying a couple of expressions I've actually never tried before, but both of them are $50 or less. One of them is called the Quarter Oak, and the idea behind this is that they're taking their bourbon aged at least 4 years, but they're aging it in a 13-gallon barrel instead of your traditional size barrel, the big barrels. So it's like a quarter of the size. And the whole idea here is that you have a lot more surface area of wood to whiskey, right? So there's a lot more contact with oak, so you're going to get a ton more oak on the palate of that whiskey. They then take that whiskey that was aged in the Quarter Oak barrel and then blend it with some of their standard Knob Creek bourbon, and it's going to give you a ton more oak on the profile. So we'll try that one out, and that one's only a $50 bottle. Then we're going to try the Boo Rye, the bourbon and rye blended together. So it's 9-year-old bourbon, 7-year-old rye blended together. We don't know the ratios, but it's only a $45 bottle of whiskey to try something that's 9 years old and 7 years old blended together. I mean, we just tried in the last video Heaven Hill, and you're looking at something that's 6 years old for $100, and then here's Jim Beam, who's like, hey, you want something that's 9 years old for literally half the price? So we'll try both of them out, see if they're any good, because again, this stuff's obtainable. It's available. So if it's good, why not grab a bottle? We're starting with the more expensive of the two, but this is the Quarter Oak, and it is a $50 bottle. It is 77% corn, 13% rye, and 10% malted barley. On the nose, some of the first things I get are like campfire wood, like the embers in the bottom of a campfire. A whole lot of vanilla bean and honey roasted peanuts. Not a bad nose at all, but I'm getting a lot of oak for sure, which I'm not surprised by. That's kind of the whole point. Get a lot of oak in here. Lots of those tannic brown sugars, dry brown sugar notes. Well, heck, let's try it. Cheers. Well, hey, if you ever wanted a sip that was going to teach you what oak does specifically, I mean, that might be it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this. This is a whole lot of caramel and a ton of dry oak. Those tannic spicy notes, but also plenty of brown sugar and honey there to offset it with a little bit of sweetness. And that's $50. You know what it really reminds me of? It tastes to me like the new Black Label 7-year-old Jim Beam bottle, that Jim Beam bourbon that's 7 years old. It tastes a lot like that, but with the oak just dialed up to 11. So it's got that nice spicy quality to it. Cinnamons, dry tannins, lots of brown sugar and honey as well. Well, heck, I don't think there's a dang thing wrong with that. That's not bad. For $50? I mean, it's not incredible. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it does, like I said, it tastes like just Jim Beam bourbon with the oak dialed up. Sweet and dry. But again, it's only $50, so to take a risk on this bottle is not really taking a huge risk, is it? So I think that Jim Beam continues to do what they do best, and that is offer you a product that is available and obtainable and is not going to break the bank. And there's nothing wrong with it. And this is no exception. I think that's basically spot on with them. It's just, what's the flavor? This time the flavor is oak. No, I got no complaints there. Although, I mean, the only thing I could be nitpicky about is that maybe I'd want a little more of those basic caramels in here as well. But $50. Not bad. Let's try the Boo Rye. 9-year-old bourbon, 7-year-old rye, blended together to make a Boo Rye. We don't know the ratios. They did not disclose them. But this is 113 proof, and it's cheaper. It's only like 45 to 47 bucks for this. Their blurb, their write-up on it says they wanted to offer the best of both worlds. We'll see if they do that. Sometimes when you blend two things together, it's not better than the sum of its parts. Sometimes you just get a muted part A and a muted part B, and so you just end up with something that feels lesser than. We'll see if this is going to fall victim to that same problem, or if they're able to meet their goals here and create something that is better than the sum of its parts. We'll find out. A little bit of maple and almonds on the nose, but those notes are taking a little bit of a backseat to the rye in this blend, I think. It doesn't take a whole lot of rye, but the rye is definitely coming through first and foremost, for sure. I can sense those maple and almonds underneath the rye for sure, but the rye is what's really jumping out to me first and foremost. And despite being 7-year-old rye, it almost gives me some young rye vibes. A little bit of attitude, a little bit of bite. I'm not getting the fruitiness that I get on a well mellowed out rye. This is much grassier up front on the nose. I'm having to sort of peel that back just so I can get under to the maple, which I really do like. But let's try it. Cheers. Interesting. The palate is the inverse of that. The palate is mostly sweet maple candies, even the almost like salted pretzels and caramel on this. And then the tail end of the palate heading into the finish, that's where those peppery notes come back around from the rye. Nothing deep, dark, and rich on this, but I wasn't really expecting that for 45 bucks. It's your light caramels, your light maples. That salted pretzel note in there. Yeah, that's very easy to sip. I would even call it crushable. I think the palate is a lot better than the nose. The nose, I was like, take it or leave it. Not too crazy about it, but the palate itself, pretty good. Thanks, Jerry, for sharing your bottles with me. Appreciate you, brother. Let's talk score. I think the quarter oak, I'm going to give it a 6.5. This maybe buy. Maybe buy it. It's affordable. It is approachable, $50. It's probably not got the most age on it. It's a little young, but if you just wanted to experience what does oak impart specifically, that's a great bottle to showcase what oak does. And I think there's a lot of value in training your palate to understand what each component is adding to what you're tasting. That way, when you're tasting something, you can say, oh, that flavor probably came from the barrel. That flavor probably came from the grains that were chosen. That flavor is probably because of the proof point. Heck, that flavor might be because of the specific yeast strain that they chose. So being able to dial in on one variable and understand what it can do is a great way to train your palate. 6.5. The Bourbon X Rye, the Boo Rye, I'm going to give it a 6.7. Overall, I think the flavor of the whiskey itself, pretty crushable. Very easy to sip, and that $45 price point is kind of hard to argue with for something that's a blend of 9-year and 7-year. Overall, I think it's a pretty good value pick. And if I could only walk away with one of these two bottles, I'd probably take the Boo Rye myself. These aren't unicorn bottles. These aren't top shelfers. This isn't something special to share with somebody when they come over and you want to make a great impression. This is just something that's like, hey, I'm in the mood for a pour tonight. What am I going to grab? It's a weekday. I got to go to work tomorrow. Maybe you're going to grab one of these bottles. And I think that that's the purpose that these serve. And with that, I say thank you so much for watching the video. Big shout out to my Patreon supporters and the people in our Discord community who are so generous that they share their shelves with me so that I can share their shelves with you and we can cover more whiskey on the channel. And that makes it so that we can pump out more content. And for that, I am extremely grateful. If you want to get involved in our awesome community, they are pretty awesome, by the way. People from all different walks of life, all across the United States and beyond. People sharing their shelves with each other, samples from their own collections with one another, helping hunt down bottles that some of you don't have access to, but others of you do. Wonderful community. Get involved. Link to our Discord is in the description below. And a big shout out to our Patreon supporters whose support makes this channel happen because you help fund the bottles that we get to pick up and review here every single week. Couldn't do it without y'all. I'm talking about people like Randy, Thrice, JD, John Herr, Patrick, Craig, Michael J, John, Michael G, Mikey P, Brian, Richard, Trevor, Kels, David, Eric, Bradley, Matt. You guys are rock stars for the support that you show on the channel. Cheers, my friends. May you live richly and get better with age, and hope to catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.